Good evening, everybody. At this time, I'd like to welcome to the stage our Mayor, Dominic J. Sarno.
Good evening, and thank you, each and every one of you, for taking the time to come out for this important presentation, and to the viewing audience, thank you for taking the time to view this. First of all, I'd like to introduce my Community Police Hearing Board, which is led by attorney and the chair, George Bergenon. George, would you please stand up, Attorney Bergenon? Commissioner Albert Tranghese. Commissioner Reverend Gail Hill. Commissioner Carmen Barry. Commissioner Richard Muse. Commissioner C. Jackson. And Commissioner Salvatore Sacosta could not be with us tonight. These individuals perform an important role in the city of Springfield, and I deeply appreciate your efforts. Besides community organizations and obviously residents of the city of Springfield, we have many law enforcement officials that are present here. Obviously, our sheriff, Sheriff Mike Ash. Sheriff, thank you for being here. In partnership, our District Attorney, Mark Mastriani. I believe Mark is here. State police officials are here. Thank you very much for being here. The Gang Apprehension Unit from the Department of Youth Services. I know I saw Nikki Cotto. Thank you for being here. And of course, our brave and courageous men and women in blue, the Springfield Police Department. First of all, I'd like to thank the men and women in blue under the leadership of Commissioner William Fitchett for day in and day out hitting the streets to make our streets a cleaner and safer place. Another round of applause. Leadership of Commissioner Fitchett and our men and women in blue. Now we move forward into a new era with incoming Commissioner John Barbieri. He will put across his 5-point vision plan and also interaction with the audience that is here tonight. We cannot do it alone. We need each and every one of you to be partners and part of the solution as we continue to move the city of Springfield forward. We appreciate you being here tonight, and now put your hands together for incoming Commissioner John Barbieri.
Thank you. When I took this job, I resigned myself to a few things. One was it's going to be 5 years of hard work, and the other was that it was going to be 5 years of following the mayor and trying to top his speeches and knowing I couldn't do it. I'm going to start off with a few short prepared words. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the background of how we got here in policing, and then the 5 strategic points. Anybody who's ever sat through a PowerPoint interview and had somebody read from the screen, there's too many armed people in the audience to do that. I will not do that. I promise it will be fairly fluid. Those of you that know me know I prefer to speak from the heart, but I thought this opening was important enough to write something down. First, I'd like to thank all present for their attendance and the interest in the future of policing in the city of Springfield. Mayor Sarno, I want to thank you for your confidence that you've shown in me, selecting me to lead the fine men and women of the Springfield Police Department. I look forward to serving and working with the other members of your management team. It takes community commitment and effort to improve living conditions in a city. The Springfield Police Department responds to the symptoms of criminal activity continually, but it will take collaborative effort from citizens, business owners, the clergy, politicians, nonprofit groups, local, state, and federal governmental agencies to affect the issues that cause criminal behavior. It is my sincere desire that the following 5 prioritized changes will make the Springfield Police Department more rapidly responsive to crime patterns and quality of life issues in order to stabilize the neighborhood and foster competitive, long-term problem-solving efforts. 3 strategies are proffered with the intent to improve departmental efficiency, accountability through its quality assurance measures, while facilitating community interaction and cooperative effort at long-term problem solving. I am considerably fortunate to have outstanding command staff personnel, line supervisors, officers, and civilian personnel to work with in regards to improving public safety in our great city. Men and women of this department display amazing amounts of dedication and courage while serving the citizens of our fine city. While I can't recognize everyone that's here, please note that I appreciate the fact that you showed up to support this, particularly the union, the supervisors and the patrolman unions, Lieutenant Charest, Officer Joe Gentile. I would like to recognize the members of the command staff that are on stage. First, I am ably supported by a fine Deputy Chief, William Cochran. Captain Robert Cheatham. Captain Cheryl Claprood. Captain Harry Kasternakis. Captain Larry Brown. Captain Mark Anthony. Captain Gene Dexheimer. Captain William Collins. Captain Trent Duda. And Captain Thomas Treitz. Thank you for your support, and thank you and your dedication. Please understand that the changes outlined here will be planned and incremental, so please have patience and understand that during the implementation, there'll be planning, critical analysis, and adjustments to ensure that it's done properly with the greatest potential for improved service. In the 1980s, we had a crack epidemic, like most urban areas in this country. And with that, what we discovered that was crack was tremendously addictive, and it affected people from all ranges of life. Mid-level people, upper income people, and what the gangs determined was that there was a tremendous source of income from that, and gangs flourished all across urban America. The people that run gangs are not stupid, they're smart, they're wily, they're people that may not have the same education as you and I, but by no means misunderstand their ability to plan, implement, and influence the youth of America, and they flourished. The government's answer to that was community policing in the 90s. There was a great influx of funding. And we were able to smother the symptoms of crime. Police department's ranks swelled up to over 700 people. And if there was a problem, we simply smothered it. We nuked an area with police officers. But what that did was it smothered the crime, but it didn't address the underlying conditions. And when the funds ran out, those police officers went away. And the problem with that is we were no longer able to serve the citizens of the city in the manner that they expected. The people in lower income areas had become used to calling the police for almost every problem. Income property managers and owners no longer hired evening or security personnel to run their businesses. They depended upon the police. So after the community policing funds left, we still were left with 176,000 calls for service and a lot less officers to respond to those community issues, quality of life problems. The answer to that was intelligent-led policing and crime data and the advent of computers and investigatory personnel to respond to crime. The advantages were crime maps that showed trends and patterns. The disadvantages were in those neighborhoods where there was no stakeholders. They were lower income residents. They weren't property managers. They weren't owners. Property owners had moved away. With middle income flight hit the city, we were left with Section 8 housing in some areas and property owners from out of state. And those people don't report crime. And they don't understand that we're not there because we don't have concerns for their safety or well-being. They think we're not there because of that, but it's because we have manpower issues. Citizens still need to be the eyes and ears of the police. Witnesses' cooperation are still required for successful prosecutions. Arrests alone will not serve long-term problems in our city. We'll work to make the department more rapidly responsive to crime and quality of life concerns. but it will take a concerted, continual effort to change the conditions that foster crime. These 5 priorities are certainly not the end of work that needs to be done at the police department. They're simply the 5 things that need to be addressed first. We're going to re-engineer police services to positively impact crime, quality of life issues, fear of crime issues, and improve the quality of service and stakeholder satisfaction. What that means is we want to look at how we do everything. We want to keep the tradition of the police department in line, but we want to look at how we do things from A to Z and find the most improved, modern, progressive method to respond to citizens' concerns while we prioritize those responses. Understand that sometimes it's like an emergency triage service. We respond to those things that are worst first, and other things get put on the sidelines. Doesn't mean we're not concerned or care about them. It just means that we have to stem the flow of blood loss immediately. The first goal, initiate a movement towards a more proactively responsive police department. The 80s crack epidemic, the 90s community policing. Before the advent of crime analysis and intelligent-led policing, what that meant was the best way to respond to crime was to assign investigators, to have detective bureau people follow up on criminal assaults and house breaks and property crimes. And all across the country, the investigative units swelled. The specialty units became the answer to the problem. But what that meant was there's less proactive people out there to patrol. It means that you're not as responsive to your 911 calls. It means you don't have as many bodies to respond in an emergency manner, to respond to quality of life issues, to respond to 911 calls, to proactively patrol for crime trends and patterns. The department model currently is about 51% uniform patrol and about 49% specialty unit. What there is a recognition in 2014 is that the model needs to shift to about 70-30. And 70% of your personnel should be assigned to units that are proactive in manner. Uniform patrol is where the rubber meets the road. Those are our salespeople. Those are the officers that need to be assigned to your neighborhoods long-term and working in those areas to solve problems that occur on a regular basis, trends and patterns, and emergency calls for service. This will provide more uniformed personnel, utilizing improved crime analysis to conduct proactive patrol to respond to reported crime and quality of life issues in the neighborhoods. So we have to review our current deployment usage and our department uses of solvability rates and the assignment of investigatory personnel with the goal of improved efficiency. Solvability rates. When you look at crime, there's usually 3 categories. One is already solved. You pretty much already have enough evidence to get a complaint. The other is could be solved with some effort. Those are the ones that you have to concentrate on. They need more continuous investigative effort to solve them. And then the last one is the ones that will not be solved without considerable investigative effort. And those need to be examined to see if the cost, it benefits the effort. We need to get more efficient. We need to look at other departmental models where this has already been enacted. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania has already shifted more towards a uniform response. Uniform is everything. Uniform is accountable to improve neighborhood conditions. Uniform patrols the neighborhoods. The uniform division responds to community concerns. That means an open dialogue and communication with departmental personnel. If we're going to reduce the number of available billets and specialty units, that means that we have to ensure that the people that get those units are deserving and that the personnel in the department have a certified, verified career path so they understand that the process is fair, it's not by whim of the police commissioner, and it's not by political influence. The officers assigned to uniform patrol would additionally get the option of other activities in uniform patrol. If the lieutenant that night decides that there should be bicycle patrol, there should be a community survey, it should be enhanced traffic patrol, if it should be investigative effort to assist in regards to breaks in plain clothes, the uniform division patrol work would be more varied and interesting for the patrol officers. We have to continue to work with unions. We have to explore other departmental models where this has been put into place. We need to adopt their policies, amend them if required, and sell it to our own people. Then we need to gradually transfer specialty personnel back to uniform. And then we need to use the overtime that we traditionally spend in the overtime patrol for investigatory efforts while the transition's ongoing. The second objective, delivery of improved response times. We've got to look at what we do and how we do it. We've got to define our policy and guidelines for how we use non-emergency personnel. When the flow of calls exceeds our ability to respond, we have to have clear defined policy in regards to when do we pull the detective units? When do the ordnance people get pulled? When do the vice detectives get told to come off their investigations? If we need them for prioritized calls for ambulance services, for officers down, for shots fired, we need to be able to pull them on a regular, consistent basis. Consistent, concerted effort to respond to people's concerns. We need to look at high volume times and serious incident locations. We need to evaluate alternative responses. We need to use overtime funds to supplement our personnel at the times where we fail to meet the call volume. If it's a specific address, if it's a specific individual, then let's just take care of it. Let's assign people to the problem and get rid of the problem. Let's address the concerns at that address. Let's stem the 911 calls. Let's have our people respond in a more proactive manner to other concerns. Overtime budget should remain the same. It should remain within budget parameters and based on accountable intelligence, measurable objectives, and verifiable outcomes. We need to improve the use of crime analysis and intelligent-led policing models, more timely feedback. Many departments use crime analysis and the analysts look at a week's worth of crime. A CompStat meeting is held and the command staff reviews the crime and tries to respond to it. The more modern method is to have real-time crime analysis, to have crime analysts working, listening to the radio, evaluating the raw data, and feeding it back to the officers on the street. Remember, hopefully there'll be more officers on the street based on a more proactive model. So instead of having investigative units respond to house breaks and follow up on them, they're able to see crime trends and patterns as they occur and have the uniform division more proactively patrol to prevent house breaks. If you live in the city and we catch the person that broke into your house, you're satisfied, but you're not happy. If you live in the city and your house is never broken into, you're happy. That's the goal. Boston has this current model. I've talked to the mayor about it, our budgeting people. Have a crime analysis supervisor, trained, specifically educated in crime analysis models, above and beyond the levels that we have now, hire more crime analysts for the evening shift and on the 6 to 2, and do real-time crime analysis and give officers feedback. The additional officers, the feedback, it should improve officer safety and it should improve citizen satisfaction and safety. As officers respond to an address for an emergent call, crime analysts can tell them the last 5 times who was the problem at that address, what type of car did they drive, what are the hazards there. As real-time house breaks occur, they can pass patterns and trends on to police officers. We've had 3 similar calls in the past nature involving a white pickup truck and a heavy-set white male with a black hoodie. It will make us better at what we do. We need to research, implement, and develop call diversion. This has been a very difficult animal for most urban police departments because most calls can be disguised. Is that unnecessary noise call a victim screaming for help? It just means that our CAD people, our computer-aided dispatch people, do a more diligent job of determining what the exact nature of the call is, and we're blessed. We have a good CAD staff on board. We've hired a dedicated department head in Melissa Nazaro to oversee quality assurance in the CAD division and will only help us do our job. We need to look at how we respond to calls. An example is a malicious damage to a motor vehicle. If your vehicle is operable, if you're not handicapped, if you're not elderly, why do we send 2 officers out to take a report? Why don't we have you come to us? We'll take a report, we'll print it up, we'll give it to you, we'll take photographs for your insurance company, but we save those officers to respond to your address. They can stay in the neighborhoods proactively patrolling. We need to select research personnel. We need to research existing applicable effective policies and either amend them or adopt them. And then we need to train our personnel, and then of course what we have to do is we have to tell the public what we're doing and why we're doing it. It's a campaign. We want public to understand that we're doing it not because we're lazy, not because we don't want to provide service, but because we want to improve service. Objective 3, we need to create increased levels of service through clearer lines of delegation and authority and responsibility for line supervisors. Anybody who's ever operated a business knows that if your line supervisors are not on board, it doesn't matter what policy comes from the chief's office. You can't personally talk to every police officer. You can't personally supervise them. You depend on your line supervisors to do it. The line supervisors, particularly the lieutenants, will be included in the staff meetings. They'll come to the weekly CompStat meetings. Reaffirm clear lines of geographical authority and responsibility within the department. This isn't to assign blame. This is to assign accountability. This is to to get feedback from the lieutenants. Do they need more resources? Is the information faulty? Are they delegating to the patrol officers? Is the job getting done? Let's give them more information from weekly intelligence. Here are your top addresses. Here are the top 10 addresses in your sector where people have called in regards to drug calls. And then we're going to track their response. And the specialty units, their primary mission will be to support the uniform division. Yes, they'll do independent investigation, but their primary mission is to support the uniform division and help them succeed. Weekly communication, training when required, enhanced accountability, and the resources to do the job. Again, the extra officers in the sector and an overtime budget when necessary to make sure that the quality of life issues and the crime concerns in the geographical neighborhoods are being responded to by the sector officers and the supervisor personnel that are assigned to that neighborhood. Having the sector lieutenants at the weekly meetings will increase overtime pay. The goal is to improve their supervisor and sector officer accountability, which should result in more efficient use of on-duty personnel, which should mean that we offset costs. Instead of having paid officers to come in on overtime to resolve issues that are occurring in the sectors because the sector officers are 911 driven, this improved accountability along with the additional resources should balance out the budget. Objective 4. We talk about this all the time, collaboration. Build relationships with stakeholders for collaborative problem solving, enhanced communications, a unified effort. There are many silos of excellence in the city. There are many programs and agencies that do phenomenal work. But you can get much more done by pulling on the rope together. We're going to review the sector beat management meetings to enhance meeting locations and environments to improve attendance and encourage participation. We'll conduct surveys. What's the best day and time of the week for you to attend? What's the most modern location we can get? Comfortable, well lit. Can we get potential childcare? Can we get somebody to donate, somebody that does daycare? Refreshments? Can we do transportation? If nobody else is available, we have a department bus. But we have to get people to the meetings. Citizens have to understand the city is 33 square miles. We're doing 176,000 calls for service. We need them to be our eyes and ears. We need them to call 911 when they see criminal activity so that we can respond. We need them to be witnesses when crime occurs so that we can enhance prosecution efforts. To facilitate that, our ordinance officers, they'll remain in the neighborhood. They do a phenomenal job on the quality of life issues. We're going to ask them to pick up another role. We're going to ask them to be crime watch officers. We're going to ask them to blend and merge with the Sheriff's Department's Crime Watch, which has been very successful. Thank you, Sheriff. We're going to use that model, and we're going to try and encourage people to participate, and we're going to give them feedback and information. Emails, weekly meetings. They're going to attend the monthly meeting. We're going to tell them what's going on in their neighborhood so that they're better informed and they're better able to inform us. The more information we get from the neighborhood residents, the more we can turn into actionable intelligence and provide timely, proactive response to their concerns. We're going to incorporate the C3 policing model in the worst neighborhoods in regards to economic conditions, because those seem to be the areas where gangs flourish. We're going to look at the areas of the city where Stakeholder participation is low. We're going to have C3 policing in those areas. And we're going to try and reach out to get them involved. And we're going to try to act as leaders, stabilize the neighborhood, and work with other governmental agencies to try and improve the conditions on the ground there to affect the cause of criminality in those neighborhoods. We already have a very successful program in the North End. The agencies involved are too numerous to mention. Many of them are represented here. I thank them for their efforts. We're going to look at the other neighborhoods where we currently have initiatives already en route. We're going to try to convert those to C3 policing. We have a successful MSI initiative in Mason Square. We have a Forest Park badge unit. They're going to continue the work that they do there, but we're going to also adopt and incorporate the C3 policing model into that. We're very fortunate. The Mass State Police, Trooper Mike Coutone, who brought this from Afghanistan, and the other members of the state police unit that are assigned have advanced military intelligence training, citizen interaction training. They're going to bring that training to our officers. We're going to assign people in the North End to that. We're going to incorporate the officers from the other models into that. And the state police are going to step back from the North End, and they're going to mentor all 4 units for us. I've already talked to Colonel Albin. We're very grateful to have the Mass State Police assistance in regards to this, and it also allows them at some point, if they have to move on to another city or location, for our people to be up and running solo. We're going to interject quality assurance into the process. We're going to develop and implement measurements and feedback processes to modify and enhance operations as required regarding calls for service. We're going to do an internal analysis of our emergency response. We're going to look at our calls for service every week. We're going to do enhanced crime analysis. Why do we have repeat locations? What is the root of the problem? We're going to try not to respond to the same address over and over again. We're going to try not to deal with the same offenders over and over again. If we know that somebody's a drug dealer, we can't quite get them for drugs, well, most of these people live violent lifestyles. We'll arrest them for something else if they're criminals, but they're going to get enhanced attention. And then we're going to do customer satisfaction surveys. We're going to do quality assurance on our people. If the police are there for a non-emergency call, they're taking a report, they're there to assist you with a block drive, we're going to reach out to the public and see, were the officers neat? Were they polite? Were we timely? Were you happy with your service? We're going to give the public a chance to respond to their concerns about policing in the city, or give them a feedback opportunity. This next slide is to show you C3 policing, and it's to just open up the conversation in regards to this is what a concerted effort to improve a neighborhood consists of. This isn't the police just arresting offenders in the neighborhood. This is a multi-agency response with nonprofit, profit, clergy, local, state, and federal governmental agencies, and neighborhood residents going door to door in a neighborhood, talking to them about the programs in their neighborhood that can benefit them. Parental education, Spanish to English, activities for children to keep them off the streets, and at the same time opening up the conversation about crime in their neighborhood, giving them an opportunity to report to the police, either by text to tip, by 911, or in person, problems in their neighborhood. And talking to them about the fact that only through a concerted effort are we going to long-term affect criminal conditions in a neighborhood. The last slide is training, because the mayor was heavy on training in the interview. And my response was that the department sorely needs professional development. Past police chiefs and police commissioners have done a great job keeping the department afloat. The primary responsibility was to keep enough personnel on the street to answer your calls for service. But one of the first budgetary concerns, always cut in a tight budget, is training. And we need to revamp the training division and improve and enhance it. We need to look at field training officers for our personnel. Again, anybody who has a business knows the first year of your employee's employment with your department or your business is the most critical. We need to enhance our rookie officers for the first year and give them the best training possible. We need to work with the unions to make that happen. We need to professionally develop our supervisors. If you look at the models that the military uses, it's a 6-month school for somebody who becomes a supervisor. The state routinely has a 1-week class that we send people to when it's available. We need to develop our own class, at least a minimum of a 4-week class, so that our patrol officers can graduate to supervisor with the skills that they need to delegate, to supervise, to manage personnel. Conflict resolution, dealing with anger issues, how to recognize problem employees, how to report problems, when to go up the ladder, when to handle things. I've already started working on that. The Western Mass Academy director is assisting me with it. Our own academy people are researching it. And then we need to continue that. We need to professionally develop our lieutenants and our captains. As people grow, as they retire, as they move on, there needs to be people available and ready to step into their shoes. Not needing training, but having training. God forbid I drop dead on the stage right now. Somebody should be able to jump into my shoes tomorrow like I wasn't even here. Training not only develops the department, it improves morale, and it reduces the department's civil liability, and it improves citizen satisfaction. If you give the officers on the street the skills they need to do their job and the ability to deal with people with conflict, the citizens will be more satisfied with the officers. The officers will have more confidence, morale will improve, citizen satisfaction will improve. Again, these 5 priorities are not the only things that need to be done in the police department, but the first 5 things that need to be done. I understand that there are some questions to be asked, and I understand that they're pre-selected questions. What I will tell you is that the mayor already has forewarned me. He's got me scheduled for a whirlwind tour. I will go on a listening tour. I have Molly Baldwin to thank for that term. I don't plan on having this meeting be the last open dialogue I have with the residents of the city. The city council, the clergy, residents, beat management meetings. I plan on, again, listening and also educating, because there are realistic limitations to what a police department can do. But together, can we inspire other people and agencies to step up to the plate and improve the city? I believe we can, and I look forward to working with you.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, Mayor Sarno's Chief of Staff, Denise Jordan, located right down here by the stage, will ask some pre-selected questions to the incoming commissioner. I'd just like to quickly thank the Republican and Mass Live and CBS 3 Springfield. They are the ones that assisted us with soliciting feedback from the public, as well as all the residents who submitted questions here this evening. So again, Denise, go right ahead.
Thank you, Jimmy. The following questions were received from Mass Live and Republican, CBS 3 Springfield, and from members of the audience tonight. Some of these questions have been merged to avoid redundancy and replication. The first question for Commissioner Barbieri is from Mass Live and Republican, user Frank Sincata, and liberal but not crazy. What is your position on having audio and visual recording on patrolmen and in patrol cars in order to keep both the officers and civilians safe?
I fully endorse it. I support it. I don't believe that anyone's against it. My understanding is that the unions are willing to explore it. It's a bargaining tool in regards to union contracts. They haven't said that they're not for it. They just want to explore it fully. They want to make sure that the policies are set forth are fair. I think that at some point you will see it in policing in Springfield. I certainly plan to pursue it. I think that in our day and age, it's unrealistic to not think that you're already being visually and audio recorded. I think that anywhere you go, there's an opportunity for someone to have a camera on you, whether it's a business or a person. And I think that, unfortunately for us, very often the camera gets turned on 30 seconds or a minute into the incident after the assault's already occurred on the officer. And again, I think for officer safety and I think for officer accountability and transparency, it's vital to the city, and I will pursue it.
Thank you. From CBS 3 Springfield, Matt Larson, the question is, in your efforts as police commissioner, have you considered establishing a public review committee of internal affairs and a complaint board that is comprised of city residents?
The good news is the hard work's already been done for me by the by current police commissioner William Fitchett and Mayor Sarno. We have a fine community police civilian review board, and their efforts have been noted and recognized, and I plan to continue following the guidelines that are currently set. I think that Commissioner Fitchett was, made a wise choice in following the recommendations. I see no reason not to continue his work with the Community Review Board.
Thank you. From a member of our audience, the question is, what is your plan to specifically address the murder rate in the city of Springfield?
Well, again, murder rates are difficult to address because if it's not a stranger on stranger crime, if somebody has a specific urge to do somebody harm, it's means, motive, and opportunity. And at some point, do they run across that person out of reach and out of communication with a police officer? I think that the best thing we could do to address the murder rate is to address the causation of crime. We're already working with the district attorney's office and other agencies to address domestic violence, which is often one of the precipitors for homicide. We're certainly going to try to address the gang problems with the C3 policing model. We're going to try and do harm reduction in those areas. And then we're going to try and work with the citizens in the city to get as much feedback and to provide as much proactive patrol and emergency response to 911 calls as we possibly can.
Thank you. The next question comes from Mass Live, user question 1212. How about assigning more proactive officers to positions that will make an impact? I would like to see proactive community officers like we had in the late 90s and 2000s.
I think we'd all like to see that, but absent Bill Clinton being reelected as President of the United States, I don't think we're going to see the massive infusion of funds that we saw in the 90s. What I do intend to do is try to shift the department to a more proactive model, which will allow us to have more uniformed police officers in the neighborhoods. Not that the numbers we had by any means, because that's just not possible. And we still have 176,000 some odd calls to answer. But what you will see is lieutenants and the sector officers and the C3 policing model officers at the beat management meetings. And they'll be more receptive, they'll be more accessible, and we'll do our best to patrol the neighborhoods as best we can, having as much community input as possible.
This question is a combined question, Mass Live and Republican, CBS 3 Springfield, from user city resident 01107 and B. Trombley. With drugs and gangs being two of the biggest issues the city is facing, what are your strategies to address both? Do your plans and responses differ from those strategies currently in place?
Well, there's been no community that has successfully eliminated gangs, and unfortunately drugs and gangs go hand in hand. What we have seen is a tremendous improvement in the North End through the C3 policing model. And the model doesn't intend to eliminate gangs. What it is it's a collaborative effort to reduce harm by having a multifaceted approach to the gang problem. The police officers, we will certainly arrest gang members that want to cause crime and the criminal element that supports them. We will address the open drug dealing problems in those neighborhoods. And then we'll offer those that want out an opportunity to go to some place to seek employment and counseling and drug rehabilitation. We'll work with other members and organizations in the community to address the problems that cause people to look at gangs. Parental education, mentoring, big brothers, big sisters, the school department, self-esteem issues. Again, the police department alone cannot resolve the issue, but as a unified community effort in the worst neighborhoods, I think that we can at least minimize it.
This question comes from Frank Daly, CBS 3 Springfield. I would like to know how you plan to ensure public safety downtown now and after the casino comes.
I think that the mayor talked about this at his press conference. I think that the License Commission, the mayor, and public safety officials need to have an enhanced dialogue with the business owners downtown. I think that the business owners, the police department, and the mayor were all in agreement that the venue downtown has to support the long-term interests of not only the business owners, but the city as a whole. And that we need to weed out those that are just here for the short term. They're here for the profit. They're here to make money from people that have disposable income from disreputable occupations. We'll work with the reputable business owners that want to provide jobs and entertainment for residents of our city, and we'll walk that fine line with them. How much of that public safety is their responsibility? How much of it is it overtime that they should pay? How much of it is our responsibility? Because as you know, we have to be careful. We can't pull too many resources away from the other taxpayers and the homeowners. We'll certainly work with those business owners. We'll certainly look at what other communities have done. New York has done a really good job with fixed posts. We've done a combination of fixed posts and walking patrols. Sometimes, unfortunately, the walking patrols move and they're not in an area where an incident occurs. My plan is to look a little bit more at fixed posts and, again, using enhanced crime analysis to see where our problems are and owning that area. And again, working with the mayor's office, the mayor's management team, the BID, who's certainly invested in their own security down there, and to do our best job to assure safety and economic development downtown.
This question comes from Mass Live, the Republican. Are you going to keep the status quo of not issuing Class A firearm licenses without restrictions of hunting and target shooting? If so, do you really think that someone who jumps through all of the hoops to get a license in Massachusetts is also the person who commits gun crimes in the city?
This is really a question about concealed carries. And I promise to have an open mind, and I promise to review this in the future. But I will tell you, my current thought process is to continue the policies of every chief and police commissioner before me, and that's to issue concealed permits based on need. And that's not because I'm a anti-gun or anti the Second Amendment. It's because all the current studies say that armed resistance leads to injury and potential violence. And I have to be concerned about officer safety and bystander safety. The studies now say it's better to be a good witness and provide information and to provide than to have violent resistance. In regards to unarmed robberies, improvements in OC and mace certainly come a long way as an alternative for a firearm. And then unfortunately, we have had many instances where people that have jumped through all the hoops to get their firearms permits and pistol permits have been indeed people that are either drug addicted and looking to sell firearms and ammunition to drug dealers, or acting as bodyguards, either because of a fiduciary agreement or a domestic relationship. Nurses, sometimes business people, they've been caught with firearms, with convicted felons in some extremely suspicious circumstances. So in regards to public safety, police officer and citizens at this point, unless there's some convincing data, I would continue the current policy in regards to issuance of a concealed permit based on need.
This question comes from a member of tonight's audience. It's two-part. Will you be bringing back more community policing patrols? How about unarmed citizen police academy graduates with walkie-talkies or cell phones to report any suspicious activities noted?
Well, I certainly think that Crime Watch is a great idea. We have to be really concerned about Crime Watch activity in regards to reporting and not responding. I think that there's some general alarm and concern in regards to when citizens cross the line and attempt to make arrests or detain people. We don't want to go down that road. I certainly think that an informed citizenship that contacts the police when there's an emergency, the eyes and ears of the police department is worth exploring. Again, I would love to go back to the days of community policing. I just don't think that the funds are ever going to roll that way again. The latest studies on community policing, the final studies right before the program lapsed, was that in most urban areas, you actually needed to double your police force. One half to handle community policing concerns, and the other half to respond to 911 calls. I certainly don't think the city can afford to double the size of the police department. My goal is to improve efficiency through these 5 prioritized responses and strategic impact plans so that we have more officers available to respond to community concerns, and they're going to be at the beat management meetings. So it's not going to be at the same level, but we're certainly going to try to provide community service.
This question comes from CBS 3 Springfield, Bo Lever. What is your plan on working with local colleges, police departments, now that some may have become armed? In the past, we have trained with the Springfield Police Department on building takeover and matters of this nature. What about in the future?
Well, just so the crowd's aware of it and the public, the Mass State Police oversee most college campus police officers, and they get their sworn powers of arrest through them, and they set their training guidelines. But the police department in Springfield, we have a long storied history of working with the colleges in regards to their concerns and emergency responses on their campuses. We've done engage the active shooter and tactical response unit training with them, and I certainly see that continuing. I think that their campuses are within our city. It's realistic to expect that if there's a problem on campus, we're going to respond in a concerted effort and work with them, not alone. It's their campus, there are police officers on it. We want to work in conjunction with them, and I would imagine that the trainings will continue as best as we can possibly manage, remembering the fact that training takes time away from patrol. We'll do what we can as much as we can.
This is a two-part question. It comes from the Hungry Hill Neighborhood Council. Will the ordinance flex squad officers continue? And if so, will they have enhanced duties and still have the primary responsibility for sectors and beat management team involvement?
I wish I could write a check to somebody who wrote that question, because that folds right into my speech. The ordinance people in our uniform division, our flex squad, are phenomenal. They do a great job. And I think that anybody who's ever been at a beat management meeting when there's a question about a quality of life issue, I think they're impressed with their officers. They stand up, they're familiar with the property, they know who the owners are, and many times they've already cited the issue or they're working on it. And I think they're an invaluable resource to the neighborhood residents and the police department. I certainly plan on continuing that. I'm asking them to step up and be involved in our crime watch. I think that the combination of the two, I think it's a good marriage, and I think it will certainly enhance the community beat management meetings. So yes, it will continue. I'll be looking for a little bit more effort in regards to them in a different manner, and I look forward to their continued existence.
Thank you, Commissioner. As stated earlier, the majority of the questions were similar, and they have been compiled. That is the end of my questions for the Commissioner, and you can prepare your closing statements.
Well, first of all, again, thank you. I'm sure that listening to a PowerPoint wasn't the highlight of your year, but I appreciate the fact that you're here to look at the public safety future of this city. And again, I'm one man. It's going to take a concerted effort, and I am especially fortunate to have the men and women in this department to support me, and the command staff that I am graced to work with, and the citizens of this city. In my role as deputy chief, I've attended numerous sector beat management meetings, and I've met residents of the city, and it encourages me to the level that they wish to be involved, to the level of commitment they have in this city, the level of love they have for their fellow neighbor. I want to thank you again for being here. I want to ask you all to work with your police department. We can't go this road alone. You cannot arrest your way out of a problem in a city. It takes a community to keep a city safe. It takes a collaborative effort to change conditions that cause crime. As you meet our men and women in blue, as you run across them at calls for service, I'd like you to remember that many of them bear emotional and physical scars from doing this job. And some of them struggle to put their uniforms on every day. But that every single one of us took this job with a commitment to serve, and that we're there in your neighborhood fulfilling that commitment. And that every officer you run into may not be in the best mood, but they're there to do the job. And when other people run out, they will run in. And that, again, this is not the last meeting, God willing, that you'll see me at. And you'll have an opportunity to pick my brain, such as it is. And I will conduct listening tours throughout the city, again, to listen to your concerns and hopefully educate you in regards to a realistic approach to policing and the limitations that your police department has, and expanding those limitations to try and resolve the issues that you have in regards to crime and quality of life issues.